Guys, did you know that beneath Africa's soil lies unimaginable wealth? Gold, diamonds, uranium, and rare earths, enough to power the world? And yet, its people remain among the poorest. Why? This is the story of stolen riches, silent exploitation, and a continent still fighting to reclaim what was always its own. The real treasure isn't just underground, it's the untold truth buried with it. This is not the story of Africa you think you know. It goes deeper than the surface, far below the sun-baked earth. This is the story of its treasures. These are not just shiny rocks or valuable metals, they are the very elements that build our modern world. They power our cities, they connect our lives. From the dawn of human history to the digital age, Africa's mineral wealth has been a silent yet powerful force, shaping destinies and empires far beyond its shores. This continent holds a remarkable paradox. Africa is a land of stunning natural beauty and vibrant cultures. It is home to millions of people with rich traditions and deep histories. Yet, it is also a place where immense poverty exists alongside staggering natural riches. How can a continent so blessed with resources struggle with such profound challenges? The answer is complex, buried in the very soil that holds these treasures. It is a story of great promise and great pain, a narrative woven through centuries of trade, conquest, and the relentless global thirst for what lies beneath the African ground. Imagine a continent whose very foundations are laced with gold, diamonds, and precious elements. Think of the immense power that such wealth could bring. For millennia, these resources fueled great African kingdoms. They built magnificent cities and established sprawling trade networks that connected continents. This was an Africa of innovation, of power, of self-determination. The legendary riches of Mansa Musa of Mali were not a myth. They were a testament to the continent's incredible mineral endowment. This forgotten history tells of a time when Africa's treasures were a source of its own strength and prosperity. But history is a long and often turbulent river. The story of Africa's treasures took a dark turn. The same wealth that built empires also attracted the eyes of outsiders. It ignited a hunger that would redraw maps and rewrite destinies. This is where our journey truly begins. We will explore how these hidden treasures became both a source of great hope and a catalyst for profound suffering. We will uncover the untold story of Africa's gold, its diamonds, its uranium, and its rare earths, elements that are as crucial to our future as they have been central to its past. The story of Africa's minerals is a duality, a blessing and a curse. Deep within the earth lies riches, gold, diamonds, uranium, and rare earth elements essential for modern technology. This wealth could build schools, hospitals, and infrastructure, providing jobs and opportunities. But this blessing has become a curse, fueling conflict and exploitation. Gold has funded wars, and diamonds have become blood diamonds. Foreign powers exploit resources, rarely benefiting the local communities. We'll explore how this happened, from ancient empires to colonial greed. It's a story of resilience, where people fight to reclaim their destiny and turn the curse into a blessing. Long before European ships charted the West African coast, a powerful empire rose from the Sahel's dusty plains, the Ghana Empire. Known as the Land of Gold, its story is a testament to Africa's ancient prosperity and sophisticated trade networks. For centuries, Ghana controlled the trans-Saharan trade routes, connecting West Africa with North Africa and the Middle East. The empire's rulers masterfully controlled the flow of gold, creating a legendary status. Ghana's power came from its strategic position between the salt mines of the Sahara and the gold fields to the south. The kings of Ghana taxed the trade, filling royal coffers and allowing them to build a powerful army. The capital city, Kumbi-Saleh, was a bustling metropolis and vibrant hub for merchants. The Ghana Empire's decline was gradual, influenced by internal strife and shifting trade routes. Yet its legacy endured, proving that an African kingdom could build immense power through strategic control of its resources. As the Ghana Empire faded, the Mali Empire emerged from the West African savanna. Founded by Sundiata Keita, Mali expanded, creating a vast kingdom. Under Mansa Musa, Mali's fame became immortal. His story is one of unimaginable wealth. Mansa Musa's pilgrimage to Mecca placed Mali firmly on the world map. His caravan was a moving city of gold, and his generosity became legendary. In Cairo, he gave away so much gold that he destabilized the local economy. His journey announced Mali as a global superpower. Cities like Timbuktu blossomed, transforming into centers of learning. The emperor built mosques and universities, attracting scholars. The Sankore University became a beacon of knowledge. The story of Mali under Mansa Musa represents the zenith of Africa's golden age. The legacy of Mali proves that African kingdoms were masters of their resources, building empires whose influence was felt across continents. Far to the south, between the Zambezi and Limpopo rivers, the Kingdom of Zimbabwe thrived between the 11th and 15th centuries. At its heart was Great Zimbabwe, a breathtaking city of mortarless stone. Unlike other empires, its story is pieced together through archaeology, uncovering a kingdom built on cattle, trade, and gold. Great Zimbabwe controlled goldfields and trade routes to the Swahili coast. Rulers became wealthy, symbolized by their capital, which housed thousands. The Great Enclosure, an architectural marvel, features an outer wall over 800 feet long. Modern archaeology proves Great Zimbabwe was built by a local Shona-speaking civilization. The modern nation of Zimbabwe takes its name from this city, a symbol of national pride. As the 19th century dawned, Europe developed a new hunger. This was the age of the Industrial Revolution, built on steel and powered by coal. It required vast quantities of raw materials and new markets. European powers turned towards Africa, a treasure chest of untapped resources. The allure of gold and diamonds remained, joined by a ravenous appetite for industrial minerals. Africa was seen as the answer to Europe's growing needs. Explorers became the unwitting scouts for imperial ambition. The industrial powers of Europe were not interested in being partners, they sought complete control. The goal was to possess Africa outright, integrating its resources directly into their economies. This shift marked the beginning of a dark new chapter, violently reshaping the destiny of Africa. By the late 19th century, European powers fiercely competed for African territory. To avoid war, German Chancellor Otto von Bismarck convened the Berlin Conference in 1884. No African leaders were invited. Representatives from 14 European nations and the US carved up Africa. The lines they drew were artificial, dividing kingdoms and ethnic groups. Boundaries were based on access to resources and strategic value. Modern Africa's straight borders are a visible scar of this era. The conference triggered the scramble for Africa. African leaders unknowingly signed away their sovereignty. By 1914, nearly 90% of Africa was under European control. Nowhere was the resource grab more horrific than in the Congo Free State. This vast territory was granted to King Leopold II of Belgium. He convinced the world he was on a humanitarian mission, but it was a lie. The Congo became his personal fiefdom for plunder. The invention of the pneumatic tire created a global boom for rubber. Leopold turned his state into a forced labor camp to harvest it. Villages were assigned impossible quotas. The force publique severed hands to prove they weren't wasting bullets. This reign of terror became known as the Red Rubber System. The population of the Congo was slashed by as much as half. Leopold became one of the richest men, building palaces in Belgium. The Congo Free State is the most horrifying example of the colonial curse. Across the continent, colonial powers implemented a consistent and ruthlessly efficient blueprint. The primary purpose of the colonial state was not to develop African societies, but to facilitate the extraction of wealth. This meant building infrastructure, but only a very specific kind of infrastructure. Railways were constructed, but they did not connect African villages or commercial centers to one another. Instead, they ran in straight lines from the mines, plantations, and forests of the interior directly to the coastal ports where the raw materials could be loaded onto ships bound for Europe. These railway lines, known as extraction corridors, were feats of engineering built on the backs of African laborers who were often poorly paid, brutally treated, and forced to work in horrific conditions. Thousands died from disease and exhaustion, building the very tracks that would carry their continent's wealth away. The ports themselves were expanded and modernized, with deep-water harbors and massive cranes designed for one purpose: to efficiently export raw materials and import finished European goods. This created a dependent economic model where Africa produced what it did not consume and consumed what it did not produce. This economic structure deliberately stifled local industries. There was no incentive for colonial rulers to encourage the processing of minerals or the manufacturing of goods within Africa. Doing so would create competition for factories back in Europe. African economies were locked into the role of simple suppliers of cheap raw materials. Tax systems were designed to force Africans into the cash economy, compelling them to work in European-owned mines or on plantations to earn money to pay the colonial authorities. This system dismantled traditional, self-sufficient economies and replaced them with a structure of total dependency. The legacy of this colonial blueprint is still deeply embedded in the continent's infrastructure today. Many African nations inherited transportation networks that are still geared towards exporting raw materials rather than fostering internal trade and development. The borders drawn in Berlin, the railways built for extraction, and the economic systems designed for dependency all created a powerful and lasting framework of exploitation. It was a system that ensured Africa's hidden treasures would enrich the colonizers, while laying the foundations for the economic challenges and poverty that would plague the continent for decades after independence. The era of formal colonialism may be over, but the economic story remains hauntingly familiar. Today, the African continent sits atop an estimated $250 billion in untapped mineral wealth. From the gold reefs of South Africa, to the copper belts of Zambia and the Democratic Republic of Congo, the sheer volume of resources is almost beyond comprehension. This incredible wealth should, by any logic, translate into prosperity for Africa's 1.4 billion people. Yet, we are confronted with a harsh and persistent paradox. Many of the nation's richest in mineral resources are home to some of the world's most impoverished communities. Instead of building schools and hospitals, the revenue often disappears into a complex web of international finance. This tragic irony is repeated across the continent. This trillion-dollar paradox is the legacy of the colonial blueprint, updated for the 21st century. The continent itself struggles to capitalize on its own immense treasures. The global demand for Africa's resources has entered a new phase, driven by 21st century technology. A new class of minerals, rare earth elements, has become critical for our digital and green future. They are the unsung heroes hidden inside our smartphones, laptops, electric vehicle batteries, and wind turbines. This has triggered a new scramble for Africa. The Democratic Republic of Congo produces over 70% of the world's cobalt. This new demand creates both a massive opportunity and a significant peril for African nations, offering unprecedented leverage. This provides a chance to rewrite the rules of the game, demanding better prices and greater community benefits. However, the intensity of this new scramble also brings immense risks. The question is whether African nations can navigate this treacherous landscape to turn technology's thirst into a genuine blessing for their people. The modern scramble for Africa's resources is dominated by the West and the rising power of China. This dynamic has transformed the continent into a vast geopolitical chessboard. For decades, Western companies have dominated the extraction of Africa's minerals. In recent decades, however, China has emerged as a formidable new force, dramatically altering the landscape. China often bundles resource deals with large-scale infrastructure projects, offering to build roads and railways in exchange for access to minerals. China presents itself as a partner, emphasizing a policy of non-interference, which stands in stark contrast to the often conditional aid offered by Western institutions. This competition has created a new dynamic for African governments, giving them options to negotiate more favorable terms. The visible impact of Chinese investment is undeniable, with new infrastructure transforming the physical landscape. However, many of these infrastructure deals are financed through massive loans, raising concerns about debt-trap diplomacy. Furthermore, Chinese operations have faced accusations of poor labor practices and a disregard for environmental standards. Africa finds itself navigating a complex path to ensure its treasures build a truly African future. Africa's prosperity is undermined not by a lack of resources, but by a crisis of governance. For every dollar earned from minerals, much is lost to corruption before reaching the public. High-level officials, shell companies, and secretive contracts siphon off wealth, turning public service into personal gain. Illicit financial flows drain more from Africa than it receives in aid, robbing citizens of schools, hospitals, and clean water. This corruption breeds poverty, instability, and public distrust, fueling anger and conflict. Governments, starved of revenue, can't invest in infrastructure or diversify economies, trapping nations in dependency. The system is propped up by global enablers, banks, law firms, and anonymous shell companies that hide stolen wealth. True reform must target not just local actors, but also the international networks that profit from Africa's loss. Only by confronting both sides can the resource curse be broken. The fight for Africa's future is global and urgent. Where corruption thrives, conflict follows. Africa's most valuable minerals have fueled its most brutal wars. Diamonds funding Sierra Leone's civil war, and tin, tungsten, tantalum, and gold driving violence in the Congo. Rebel groups and militias seize mines, force civilians including children into dangerous labor and use the profits to buy weapons. The human toll is staggering, communities shattered, millions displaced and children robbed of their futures. Minerals from conflict zones are smuggled and mixed with legitimate sources, making them hard to trace. International efforts like the Kimberley process have struggled to stop the flow. As long as global demand remains high, violence persists. The world's technology and luxury goods are built, in part, on this suffering. The resource curse turns Africa's riches into fuel for its deepest wounds. Breaking the cycle requires real accountability and responsible sourcing. The resource curse devastates not just people, but the land itself. Industrial mining scars the earth. Forests cleared, rivers polluted, habitats destroyed. Toxic chemicals like cyanide and mercury poison water and soil, leaving communities with chronic health problems. Tailings dam failures can unleash environmental disasters lasting decades. Unregulated artisanal mining adds to the crisis, with mercury contaminating rivers and food chains. As land and water degrade, more people turn to mining, deepening the cycle of destruction. The pursuit of underground wealth destroys the true riches above: fertile soil, clean water, and biodiversity. Environmental damage locks communities into poverty and dependence. The scars on Africa's landscape are a stark warning. The cost of extraction is often paid by the earth itself. Sustainable solutions are needed to protect both people and planet. Africa's story is changing, led by a new generation determined to reclaim its future. Young leaders, activists, and entrepreneurs are demanding transparency, fair deals, and an end to exploitation. Governments are closing loopholes and negotiating better terms with mining companies. Civil society empowers communities to demand their share and hold leaders accountable. Regional cooperation, like the African Continental Free Trade Area, is building economic strength from within. The focus is shifting from raw exports to value creation and self-sufficiency. Africa's new leaders see the continent as a global player, not a victim. The world's need for Africa's minerals gives leverage, if used wisely. The challenge: build strong institutions and partnerships based on respect and shared benefit. A new dawn is rising, with Africa's destiny in African hands. The old model sent Africa's raw materials abroad for others to profit. Now, African nations are insisting on processing and manufacturing at home. Value addition creates skilled jobs, supports local industries, and builds economic resilience. Botswana's diamond industry shows what's possible: local cutting, polishing, and reinvestment in health and education. The shift from raw to refined is about dignity and sovereignty, not just money. New technology partnerships offer a chance to build sustainable industries from the ground up. The path is tough, requiring investment in energy, infrastructure, and skills. But the goal is clear: Africa's wealth should benefit its people first. When the world looks at Africa, it should see not just resources, but value created by African hands. This is the foundation of a new economic future. Africa's hidden treasures have shaped the world, but too often brought paradox and pain at home. The legacy of exploitation is real, but the narrative is shifting. Across the continent, a new story is being written, one of reclamation, hope, and self-determination. The true treasure is not just in the ground, but in the ingenuity and resilience of Africa's people. The journey ahead is challenging, with corruption and environmental threats still looming. Real change demands courage, transparency, and global partnerships built on respect. The world needs Africa's resources for a sustainable future, but Africa must benefit first. The final chapter is unwritten, forged in boardrooms, classrooms, and communities. Africa's hidden treasures are not just minerals, but the thriving nations rising above them. This is the new African story, a future forged by and for Africa itself. But what if we told you the real battle for Africa's treasure is just beginning, and the next chapter will reveal the global powers still pulling the strings? In part 2, we uncover the deals, the deceptions, and the fight for control that the world doesn't want you to see. If you like the video, please like and subscribe to see the part 2 of the untold story.